Hi class, this is JilMac. I'm your instructor, and we're going to go over Chapter 10. The students know that if they have any questions, they can give me a call. We're going to go over Chapter 10. Now, to have a really quick link to the textbook, you might want to grab this URL and put it on your own website so that you can easily get to it. And let me show you how to do that. So I've copied it from the textbook, and this is where we go and get all the examples. And I've copied it, and I'm going over to my website just because it's easy and quick to get to the web students. And from there, this is my site. If you want to look at any of the other students in the class and see what they're up to, there's theirs. But here's mine. And I'm going to go down to my resources where you can start to build your own resource page. And I'm going to edit the page, and I'm going to just add a link, and I'm going to say to access textbook website. And I'll just put that link in there and say save. So now from your own website, you can quickly and easily go out there and look at a particular chapter. We're going to be looking at Chapter 10. So I click on Chapter 10, and in the beginning of Chapter 10 on page 229, the first example is before and after. So the before example is no styles. So I'm not the only one that uses the term before and after. This is what a website looks like before we make any changes, and this is what it looks like after. So from page 231, it shows us the code, and this is what our website looks like. This is the Barcelona architect. It's very plain. This is just the text in it. It's the text, it's the images, it's the links, but it doesn't have any CSS formatting. It's really, and that's why they call it no styles, it's really has no cascading style sheets. It's just the data. Now when we go back, the after is right up here. It's not always intuitive. Here is what it will look like in the final. And so if we look on page 230 of our textbook, we see the before example and we see the after example. The after example is all formatted. It's formatted pretty much for tablets and phones in that, it's not utilizing the whole wide screen. It's kind of utilizing a narrow screen like you would see on a phone or a tablet versus a computer. So let's look at that again. When we're looking at the code, here's the before with no styles, and we see that on page 230. And the code is on 231. That's what the before looks like. We can always open another tab if we wanted to, and we could look at the after. So here's the after code, and I can just copy that and put it on a new tab. So that here is our after, and when we go here, here is our before with no styles, and our after. So that's kind of the before and after, the very first example, and that's what I'm trying to do with my before and afters. I'm trying to make sure that you have code of what you started with, in case you have to fall back, and code afterwards, what you changed after it, so that if there's ever anywhere where you break your code, you can always do a compare on them, compare one to the other. Here, I also wanted to show you, some of you may be ready for more advanced editors and more advanced ways of looking at web pages, and some of you may just want to kind of watch this, and I'll be introducing it more and more, but we have Notepad, and Notepad is great for writing code and looking at code and thinking about it. But when you're looking at a website and you're trying to decide things, you might want to use the developer toolkit. And Google has a developer toolkit, Firefox, Internet Explorer, for kind of finding out things of development. So you can right-click on, or you can click on this, what I call the Adidas, and go to More Tools and Developer Tools. That's one way of doing it. You can right-click and go to Inspect. That's another way of looking at it. And the Chrome developer tools have given us some new tools up at the top. At the bottom here we can click on elements and it shows us the HTML and we can open these tags. It shows us our sources where we can look at the HTML itself. This shows us the HTML and we can scroll down through it. It also shows us our CSS. If we want to look at their CSS, we can look at our CSS here. When we look at the elements, we're kind of looking here. If we click on the CSS, now we're displaying the CSS. We've had a couple of people remark about the box design that CSS3 is doing now. But we also have up at the top some new features which lets us look at how does this web page look on different appliances. If I wanted to look at it on the Apple iPad, this kind of shows me what it looks like on the Apple iPad, and it shows you the screen size. If I wanted to look at it on a Google Nexus, this is what it would look like. If I was going to expand it or increase the size of it, we could do that. So you could see how it looks. If you wanted to look at it to see how it looks like on a laptop with high DPI, and as you enlarge the picture, that's what it looks like. You can kind of look at it there. So before, it used to be really hard to kind of figure out what a web page was going to look like on different appliances, and now Google has built this in. So that helps a lot. Also, let's just look at it from a laptop, because I guess this is a good way of looking at it, and I'll blow it up a little bit more. If I wanted to change or kind of experiment a little bit with it, and I wanted to go into the CSS, maybe I'll do a little simpler one. I'll do a little simpler one on that. So let's close this, and we go back to looking at the before and after, which is on page 230. The next one I wanted to look at was on page 248. So let's go back to the textbook and go back and look at the one that's on page 248. 248 is setting the color. And color is an easy way to kind of learn what CSS does, because it's something that if you're not color challenged, and some people are, you can easily kind of see things where sometimes it's a little bit less. So let's look at setting the color, and this shows us the CSS that helps us set color. And let's look at this with an HTML. Here's the results with HTML, where I'm repeating a background. And if I wanted to look at this, I could just view the page source, and this would show me all the page source. Or I could look at this in Google Development Tools. Let's look at background fixed image. This shows you that the background has a fixed image, that this is always kind of blue down at the bottom. When you scroll to the top, this is always dark. That's the way that one has set up. And you are building and building and building this. If we look at page 250, you're building this to see how it works. So here's the background color on page 250. Let's look at that one. And we can look at the HTML. So here we've got a background color. If we wanted to, we could go into the developer tools by clicking right-click and inspect. And if we wanted to look at the CSS, and we could go into the header and look at this CSS background color, and we double-click that, we see that it shows us the boxes here, how all of those boxes are done. And if we wanted to look at the sources, and right now we're looking, this happens to be the HTML. And here if I wanted to look at the CSS, so now I'm in sources and I'm just looking at the CSS, And I can come down and look at these and look at this background color. So here with the H2, I have a particular background color. And you could change it, hover. Let's look. Here, the whole body has a background color, and that's like kind of that blue color. But suppose I wanted this whole background color, and I'm going to just change it to be red. You can see how that changes to red. Now, this isn't going to save your stuff. You still have to block copy it and go into your Notepad++ and change it, and then FTP it up. But it allows you to kind of see things a little bit more easily. If we wanted to change the font, we could change the fonts here and we could see it displayed. You'd have to kind of really blow it up to see it. But for those of you that are ready, you might be ready to try some of this Google Chrome developer tools. For those of you who are not ready, you can do this same kind of thing in Notepad++. So if we wanted to look at this background here, we could take this file and we could edit it in Notepad++. Okay, if you have any questions, give me a call and we'll go on to Chapter 11.